a Dredfunn original production. Please sit back and enjoy.
Alright guys, I am back another Dredfunn Draws. I'm going to do something that I do quite a bit on my own in a lot of my time-lapse work. I'm going to show you guys how I paint with something as simple as table salt. This one got crushed and I had to add some duct tape. So what you're going to need is just some regular old table salt, some masking tape, and an assortment of watercolors. I'm going to be going with some oranges, yellows, and reds, and I'm going to show you guys how to use the salt to do a background effect. And then at the very end I'll do a secondary video where we take the salted background and I show you how to basically go through the whole motion. Okay, here we go. First off, we're going to start with a bit of tape here. The reason why I got this masking tape out is because I'm going to be using it to sort of do these nice little effects here. And the way you want to do that is you just take the long strips and you just start layering them close together, because these are going to be areas that are actually not going to be painted. So we're going to be removing that tape at the very end. The reason being is it just adds a nice effect, a nice contrast to the painted background. Alrighty, here we go. Boom. So you just want to layer them out, kind of almost in like the rays of the sun, sort of. What we're going to do is we're going to have a spot here over at the middle is going to be white, and I'm going to color everything out from there. So once you get all the tape down, if you want, you can also, if you're just a kid at home, I wouldn't suggest using a razor blade or an apparatus like this. Maybe just some simple scissors can work to cut the tape. You don't want to get too complicated. Alright, I got one more strip here, and that's going to be good enough. Perfect. You know what, actually going to add one more. Oh, I have a nice big one right here. Boom. Good. Okay, once you got that all down, you want to make sure all the tape is pressed. You want to use this nice masking tape because it doesn't really stick to the paper. What you're going to want to use is watercolor paper. I just got a Artist's Loft. It's cold pressed finish, acid-free, tape-bound paper. 90 pounds, 12 inches by 9 inches. Pretty good stuff. It's got a nice, almost like a perforation on the edges here. Alright, once you got that set, you're then going to go about and add some water. A lot of watercolor artists, traditional ones, do this. They'll pre-wet their page. And that's what I'm going to do here. Just going to go ahead and wet it all down. The reason being is when you add the salt, you're going to have like it's almost like a chemical reaction. What will happen is the salt and the water and the paint will all start to react, and what will happen is you'll get these kind of almost like little bubbles, neat little basically designs in the paint that really look cool. Now you can super soak this if you want. I don't generally. I just go with a nice light little bit of painting on there, or a nice light bit of water. Once you got that ready, you're then going to go ahead and mix around with the paint. I usually like to go with my lightest color, just because it's a matter of preference. I find that it works best. So I'll get a good healthy amount of paint on there, and I'm just going to go ahead and sort of simply sweep this in. Now I will do this a lot of times for paintings where I will have like a central character and almost like a portrait shot, and when I'm doing it in my comic style, I like to add this salted background I call it a salted background. I'm pretty sure that there's actually probably a technical term for what it is. But I am untrained, meaning I learned all this stuff on my own through trial and error. Had a hard time sitting through classes as a kid. Had a hard time sitting still in anything. You'd think with drawing I wouldn't have such a hard time, but actually, yeah, it was pretty rough in school. Anytime a teacher wanted me to sit still and try to work was when I didn't want to work. Alright, so I'm going to go with a nice little yellow there. And, you know, every now and again I'm also adding a bit of water here because you do want to keep it wet. But one thing you want to keep in mind is you don't want to, with watercolor paper, you don't want to be adding too much because you'll start pulling it up here. Alright, now I'm going to go with a little bit of orange. What I'm trying to go for, the effect I want to go for, is almost like fire, like flame. So I'm going to be adding this, and it's key to work quickly. So you want to prep a lot of your stuff beforehand, so you got these colors ready to go, like I have over here, and you're just going to basically add the orange here and there and everywhere. There we go. You don't want to worry too much about how much. Like I said, this is going to be a neat little effect. Once you add the salt, everything goes a little crazy. Alright, finally I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit this outside edge with some red dots. The reason why I use the dots is because, well, it works well. You'll see when I go ahead and add the salt that it'll really make a nice little stipply, kind of bubbly effect here. And that's what I'm going for here. Every now and again I add a little bit more of the red with some water. I prefer to use like artist loft paint out of the tube, things like this. A lot of folks like to do it with tempera, whatchamacallit there, the bricks, watercolor bricks. I've never been one for doing that myself. I understand it's cool, and I know people like it, and whatever works. I just find that I can't get a strong enough color sometimes. So there we go. I got a healthy amount of the colors and water. Now I'm just, again, sort of mashing it. What'll happen is we're going to have a nice cool effect here. I'm just going to add a few more. You can already see as it is, if I were to let this just dry without adding the salt, it would look pretty cool. Last but certainly not least, I'm going to go in and add a few shots of water in and around here and bring these colors back up. Not much. Like I said, you want it to be damp, or certain areas to be damp, because that's what's going to react with the salt. Alright, I'm liking this a lot. Now you get your table salt and you just sprinkle, just like you're having dinner. You know, if you want to get all crazy, you can go ahead and pour it in your hand and go like this if you want. I like to actually just sprinkle it. And then before I shut it down, you can already see what I'm talking about here with the stippling. I don't know if that's technically what it is, but it's a nice little effect that happens with the watercolor paint and the salt. So I'm just going in again and adding a few more dabs of paint. Not too much, because a lot of this area is going to become almost like a pinkish. So there we go, and I can already get a good idea. If you want, you can flick your brush too. You know, whatever works. As I said, this stuff is just going to sort of blend in. There we go. So I'm liking that. I think that's what I'm going to leave this as is. So it's almost like I got a nice little explosion. So I've used water, table salt, just the stuff you sprinkle on your food, some waterproof or watercolor paper, some masking tape, and now the key is actually just sitting back and letting this stuff dry. You don't want to mess with it. I see a few other spots here where I can just add a few of this. And then in the next video, the part 2, I'm going to show you what you can then do with this. What I'll do a lot of times is I'll actually paint the main person in the front, and then save my final inking process so it really pops. And I'll do this sort of in the background. So I hope you guys like this. Don't forget to subscribe and check out part 2 for how we finish this up, painting with, I guess, watercolor painting with salt with Dredfunn.
This has been a Dredfunn.com production. Thanks for watching.